Luquillo is a beach near where I'm from in Puerto Rico. To me, it's the most beautiful place on earth. White sand, palm trees, and the coqui. This little tree frog doesn't croak. It sings its name. I laugh because the tourists, man, they think it's noisy and annoying, but to us Boricuas, man, it's a magical sound. And the coqui, it mates for life, right? So every sunset, thousands of these frogs start calling out to the one and only love. It's the music of the island.
You're gonna see that beach again, Hector. I promise. And you'll be reunited with your family.
Hey, panelists, welcome back to the show. I'm Mark.
And I'm Steve.
And I'm Becky.
And I'm Rob.
All right, everybody. This is a spoiler-full podcast about season 1 of Daredevil Born Again that could be found on Disney+. Obviously, spoilers, everybody. So if you're not, used to spoilers, please stop the podcast now, go back, watch the episode, and then come back and listen to us and talk about the actual episode itself. So we're covering episode 3 of Daredevil Born Again. Who wants to cover the title and the synopsis?
I can do it. So Daredevil Born Again, Season 1, Episode 3, The Hollow of His Hand. The synopsis is short and sweet. The trial of Hector Ayala begins. Fisk's old business associates seek to claim his vacant mantle.
Dun, dun, dun.
That's it. There's your two things of the episode. That's
literally what it was.
And we're done.
And yeah.
Good night, everybody.
It was like an NCIS episode, literally, of a court for the most part. And then the drama with Fisk and his wife, and him talking about the issues in Red Hook. Now, are they actually talking about the town of Red Hook up in New York State, or are they talking about something specific that I'm not clued in on?
Well, all the Marvel shows are usually based off of real places.
Yeah.
Unlike DC worlds where, they kind of make up some of the cities.
Yeah.
So.
Interesting. So it might be the town of Red Hook, which is actually up past Poughkeepsie, if you guys don't know that. There is a shoreline there, too. So obviously there's something going on. But that's pretty far travels for Mr. Fisk and his people. But, to get down to the nitty-gritty of the actual episode itself and what we like, what we don't like, we're going to go into our overall thoughts about the episode. So, Steve, you start us off.
Sure. I mean, I talked a little bit about this before we started. The second watch, it was a bit slow for me. There's a lot of stuff, and we'll talk about the stuff that sets up for the later episodes. But I must have been really, really tired the first time I watched the episode because I completely missed a couple of things that I want to talk about at the end of the episode that I completely missed because I like kind of woke up and went, oh, the credits are rolling. I wonder what happened. And then, of course, on my second watch, I was like, oh, this happened. And then, oh, that happened. So that was kind of my thing of the episode was it was slow up until the very end. There was whoa, this major thing. So
yeah, I agree. I thought it was slow going, but it's one of those episodes, and I actually saw this at a friend's house. They had screeners, and I saw this in the 4th episode. Haven't gone back to watch any of the others at their house. So I was like, no, I'm going to wait. But they were able to get screeners of it. And this one I felt kind of was like, okay, it was more pertinent to the idea of Hector, what Matt was going through, everything else. So it was more important about Matt's evolution of going back into being Daredevil again. And seeing that, because there are a lot of points in the episode that we'll talk about regarding how he approaches, especially when it's in trial format. And then obviously the stuff with Fisk is needed to see where he's going too, because this is the first time he's back. He's back. His wife Vanessa was handling everything, and now they think the Kingpin himself is not up to the task. So a lot of people are trying to revolt in a certain way that were under them and under their guidance and leadership for the even though he is mayor now. But yeah, it was slow going. I do agree. It was one of those things. I felt like I was in an NCIS episode watching the jury and the trial itself, which is intriguing at times. But there's certain things that you do pick up here and there that are still, Marvel based, Daredevil based, like with the heartbeats and the interrogation and people on stand and talking, and then the little nuanced stuff that was going on just before the case started. Anybody else?
I liked it. As y'all know, based on what we talked about last week, this was my first getting back into Daredevil since Ben Affleck. So I started going back and watching the original series, and I liked this week better because I knew a lot more of what was going on, having seen. I'm almost finished with season 1, so it really added to my excitement. I didn't find it slow. I thought the pace of it was pretty natural given what they were, with the trial. I didn't expect the trial to end in one day, but I'm glad we got some resolve on that. But Fisk and Vanessa fascinate me, and any Fisk and Vanessa heavy episode, I'm gonna enjoy. So I liked it.
Bill?
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting episode. I seen all the Netflix ones, and I still like the way the pace of the show. The one thing I really enjoyed, which I think that it's a, how can I say it? For a person like me, which of course my background is half Puerto Rican, half Dominican. The character of White Tiger, Hector Ayala, which is supposed to be a Puerto Rican, one of the first Puerto Rican heroes out there that came out in Marvel. And he was describing certain things on the island that if you are Puerto Rican, you could so relate to it, especially when he's talking about the tree frog, which is called coqui, which is only indigenous to Puerto Rico. And while he was saying that some people might find it annoying for people who live there, it's basically like this great song. And the last time I visited Puerto Rico, of course, you get off the plane and it's nighttime, and then you hear them. And that's when you're like, wow, there's a sound I haven't heard in a while. But the way he describes it, of course, if you're Puerto Rican or of, Puerto Rican descent, and you have visited Puerto Rico, it was such a great way to, one, describe the culture, and two, describe those little moments, which I thought were great. The character, of course, just like in the comic books, unfortunately, is this a spoiler free or
spoiler full?
Yeah,
spoiler full. So, as if you saw the episode, you know that just like in the comic books, White Tiger basically doesn't make it. It's different in the comic book compared to the way it was done here, but he gets shot at the end, which is kind of tragic because I wish I would have seen a little bit more of this character. My only complaint about it is his costume looked looked worse than what I would say that a cosplayer would use in
It was homemade.
in Comic Con. But other than that, some great acting by the actual actor who, by the way, I don't know if you guys are aware that he passed away of cancer.
Yes.
So very tragic about that. But yeah, no, I liked this episode. I liked it a lot. I thought that Matt Murdock's, I would say, arc in this season is going pretty well. Maybe I think what people are having a problem with is that it's not as dark and gritty as the Netflix one, even though it somewhat is, but there is still a little bit of the MCU Disney kind of, you know, tone to it, and hopefully, with the Punisher coming in later episodes, maybe they might, tap into some of the Netflix grittiness of it, which I hope they do. But other than that, yeah, I enjoyed it.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. And I know, Mark, we're kind of just free flowing here.
Yeah.
But not to take over let's talk about that for a minute, because like I said, that ending, which is probably the hugest, and there's a lot, we'll talk about the whole episode, but I really want to talk about that very end where we do see, like you said, we see White Tiger get killed. We see him get shot. And then somebody walking towards the camera wearing the Punisher. Do you think, and this is where I was back and forth after I finished watching it the second time, was it didn't feel like something
That was not
the
Nick.
Punisher. Okay. It does not seem like this is what the Punisher would do. This is a
No.
copycat. This
No.
is somebody pretending to be him.
Oh,
and
definitely.
Well,
And
keep in mind that like the cops,
one of them had a tattoo.
They
of
used
the-
that
they had-
emblem, right?
they use that emblem, and funny enough about using that emblem, because it's supposed, as a matter of fact, the in Marvel they even changed the emblem to something different, because a lot of people were using, people that were trying to, like, either do crimes or trying to do something in real life.
or simulate anything.
We're using the emblem of the Punisher a lot, and I think the artists, or I think Marvel just decided to kind of change the emblem. So this, I think, is gonna probably go maybe the same way, but I don't think it was Frank Castle, because Frank Castle
Frank Castle.
despises the Kingpin, and you could tell that this was more of a hit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Possibly by the Kingpin, possibly by Vanessa. Who knows?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I have
thank
a
you.
question. I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
Steve. Go ahead.
Well, no, and that was just what I was getting at, was it just didn't feel to me like something Frank Castle's Punisher would
No.
do, because yes, he doesn't have any love lost for the caped, the costumed Crusaders, but we've never seen him actively work against them. And we also know that he doesn't like dirty cops. So if he does any sort of investigation, he's going to know that these two cops that were involved in this altercation were bad guys. So I just didn't see it being Frank Castle. But go ahead, Becky.
Well,
what was your question?
I think White Tiger is more of again, a vigilante that actually does good, and the Punisher doesn't really go out there and kill anybody who,
Doesn't deserve it.
I would like to say, like, there's no collateral damage when it comes to the Punisher. He normally just goes after the bad guys. He has no problems, blowing somebody's brain out, as long as he knows that, hey,
It's a bad guy.
drug lord or something like that, whatever it is, but I don't think he would have done this to him.
Yeah, and he wouldn't work for Fisk anyway.
Correct.
In comparison to what we already know beforehand when we covered the Punisher series, Steve. We already know he already had a beef with Fisk, and an attempt was made on his life in prison when he was put in prison. So I think what they're trying to allude to is, and with all the nuances that we've already gotten from the symbolism, and like you said, Rob, it is also something that police actually do use today. And actually, the creators have actually commented this on interviews and how they use that symbol every once in a while. Or you see people, my brother variably had used it when he was in the police department. He didn't really understand, or he loved the comics and he loved the character too, but he never followed through in using that. But in the very beginning, we do see one of the buildings on the side of the wall. It has the new version of the Punisher logo, but on it is written "triggered," meaning that they're triggering people. And it could be a sect of people who are independent vigilantes, just like the White Tiger, but are utilizing it for crime as well as for probably, and it could be something within the police, because Fisk, as we know, is the mayor, and he has control of the police. As we know that when we saw Powell talking to Matt in the very beginning, and Matt already knew that Powell was dirty. And basically Fisk has control of the police because they'll do whatever the mayor tells them to do. And then on top of that, and as we saw in the court case or the courtroom, the one police officer turning and you see it and seeing the tattoo on his neck. I wouldn't be surprised if it was that same police officer was the one that actually executed.
Yeah, they make
Hector.
it seem that way, and I think it is the police that's
Oh, yeah.
but I don't think Fisk is. I don't know. There's a part of me that thinks that Fisk is trying to actually go straight.
To some degree, yeah. I
Right.
Yeah,
think
this
you're
is
right.
another
He's trying to go
topic,
straight,
yeah.
but he just, I mean, I think I think they're forcing his hand.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well-
I think. Go ahead, Bill. Go ahead, Becky.
Well, leading up to Hector getting being found not guilty, the testimony that he gave on the stand, I just want to say kudos to the actor. That was very
Oh, yeah.
compelling, beautiful testimony, and the work that Matt did by calling both cops and regular citizens to the stand. And I
Mhm.
think it could stand on its own merit that Hector and Matt, through their closing statements and testimony, did their job to get him get him a not guilty verdict. But I couldn't help but think in the back of my mind, once he was basically executed, do you think that maybe the police did something and rigged that jury again, like they tried to do the first time, and got him off so that he would be free and they would be able free to kill him?
I don't think so.
I don't think
I don't
so
know.
either.
Yeah,
could
I
be
mean that's
wrong.
an intriguing thought. I don't see it going. And that's too deep. I think that would be too
Deep of a cut.
I think yeah, that would be too deep to try to figure out the manipulation of the jury and but I that's an intriguing thought that they got him acquitted just so they could execute him.
Yeah.
When I mean I think they could have executed him in
But I guess
prison
they could have done it in jail just as easy as sorry, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no,
they
it's
could
a,
have
it's a
done
good
lot.
it's a good thought though. But I think Rob, what you said about Fisk, and this was again, it's another kind of topic, is it does appear to me that they're trying to at least, and again, this is one of those things that I noticed on the second watch was, it really looks like he is trying to go. I think he is trying to go straight, but every time he talks about trying to go straight, and like when he's telling Vanessa to, we'll just let them kill each other and then we won't worry about what the vacuum is left behind, the camera always pans to his knuckles.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
those scars on his knuckles of where he has been the kingpin, has beaten people. So I think there's definitely a duality there to the kingpin, to Fisk, of he wants to go straight, but I think by the end of the first season they're going to pull him back in, I think.
Well, he said he wants chaos. He wants the chaos to happen
Yeah.
in the city because it could work to his benefit if and when he's able to, quote unquote, clean it up. But I don't think a man like that ever goes straight. But what I like is Vanessa's power grabs and how he's blatantly telling her, do not go and do this. And she's going and doing what he's telling her not to do. But their back and forth, almost like chess match that they have with each other about this, is absolutely brilliant storyline.
That was always their relationship. If you
I'm learning that
you're
from
learning that
the first
and
season. Yeah.
exactly. You haven't gotten to that point with like where it got even worse. But the thing is that she feels that he's softened and his credibility is there. And I think this is going to be it's going to come to a head at a certain point at the end of the season where she challenges it, and something's going to happen to Vanessa eventually, because as we all know, Kingpin always lasts, regardless of being shot in the face by Echo. At the end of
I
that
don't think
series.
he's gonna do anything to her. I mean,
He loves her
honestly,
too much.
yeah, he loves her too much. And as a matter of fact, the relationship that he's had in the first three seasons, in the Netflix one, was always him adoring her and she
Yeah.
admiring him so much. Here is when we actually got to see that rift between them.
Yes.
And that makes, as a matter of fact, believe it or not, that part of their relationship and them going to therapy really makes this series a lot more interesting. I want to see a little bit more of that. Not a lot, but a little bit more because it is intriguing. Just watching that relationship unfold and what's going on, I think is great. My problem with the whole thing is, again, which I told a friend of mine, my problem with it was that I think you guys know this series had a lot of problems and they had a lot of reshoots. And part of it was because they weren't bringing back Karen and Foggy
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
And they kind of did, I guess Kevin Feige saw it and said, oh, and not only that, but he wasn't supposed to be Daredevil up until like episode 10 or something, some crazy stuff like that.
Like it
where
was the first season too.
Right. So they just like they were gonna do a lot less Daredevil and they were gonna make it more of
A
a
rebirth.
courtroom drama.
Yeah, a courtroom drama. That's what I read.
And
Yeah.
people were not liking that. So the fact that they bought them back in, I thought that was great. But the advertisement really made it seem like they were probably gonna be throughout the whole
Yeah,
series. And
yeah.
it was just like
We had a whole rant on this the last
Yeah,
when we talked
Steven-
about
And
those
you're,
two
I,
had that
get,
episodes.
I
rant.
see where you're coming from too, Steve and Rob, because having seen just the first 10 episodes, that relationship between Foggy and Matt, oh my gosh, and it even calls back to it in this episode when he has a drink with his lawyer friend, that
Mhm.
crappy old alcohol the bourbon they used to drink.
Right.
What a missed yeah, I get it. I get your frustration on that. I will say, contrary to your point, I like that he's not Daredevil yet, because in season one of the original, they dive right in, and that man is getting beat every day, and it's almost unbelievable how a human, even though he's got some special powers, so to speak, could survive something like that. And it was almost like a trope that every episode he'd had to be sewed up by what's her face and whatnot. I like the way they're going the slow burn this time. I think it's working.
Yeah.
I
It
can see
is.
that. Yeah.
I could see that. And to speak of, like, we talked, Rob was telling, and we did mention about how, Deborah and Eldon came back as, Karen and Foggy, and just gave us that tease and taste, and then just got rid of Foggy altogether. But Karen,
I was shocked at that.
Yeah. Same here.
Yeah.
And then it just makes me think is, okay, by the end of the season, if he puts on the duds, the suit, and he's there alongside, let's say, Frank Castle as the Punisher, and there's a heavy fight, they are human. They're still physical humans. We've seen it before in Daredevil. What if we got back Claire Temple, which is Rosario Dawson's character?
That's the nurse.
Yes.
Okay.
So she
I
was
like her.
she was a running character throughout the Netflix series, and I would love to see Rosario just come back real quick again and having to heal, Matt again, or even Frank, because she had to deal with both of them. She goes, I love it during the Defenders when she had to have that conversation, and she goes, yeah, it's not my first rodeo with these people. They're always getting shot up. So it'd be great to see that to come back, because it'll be more well-rounded. If they bring Deborah back again as Karen Page, I would love it, for the fact that I still think Karen Page makes a difference. At the very end of that run, she was more press-based, and now we have this new press version, which is more media-based with BB and her coverage of everything. So I would love to see it if, like, Karen at the very end does something to challenge it, and they do bring back Deborah as Karen Page again, because she's going to be needed, and eventually we're probably going to get another Punisher series again, because they're going to try to bring back the Defenders in some way. Yeah, that's like Mike Coulter coming back as, Luke Cage.
Well, you know what? I hope they don't bring him back. And not because I don't want to see that group together. It's just the guy who played Iron Fist, horrible.
Oh,
So,
yeah, we all said that.
yeah, so it's just he's the biggest weakness to that group. Especially, I think the actor is just not the right actor for that
No,
role.
I agree.
And I just think that if you are gonna, I hope they replace him. I don't think anybody would have a problem replacing
No.
him getting replaced with
Yeah.
somebody much better. Other than that, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I hope that Rosario Dawson, they haven't really mentioned anything about it, and I don't think she will come back, but I'm just being hopeful on
Yeah,
that.
I'd love to see her come back with all the leaks we've had of previous things. It would surprise me if she does come back and it didn't get leaked somehow. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she does live in Jersey, so it's not too far of a stretch to drive to Manhattan to film.
yeah,
And that's
but-
what I also liked about this episode too, by the way. The more of the visual look, you could tell it was filmed in New York City. That was always a benefit to the Netflix series too, because they actually did film in the city itself. They're filming a lot more shows now, especially with the new Dexter show, because there was rumors like, oh, Kristen Ritter's coming back to Daredevil it's Jessica Jones. And it's like, no, they're filming the next Dexter series. And I could tell exactly where they filmed. It was like right across from Central Park in the Museum of Natural History in that little park area. And I was like, oh, nope. Yep. She's probably going to come back eventually, but who knows when they'll do that. I don't think they want to overload us. I think they want to concentrate on the actual Daredevil story of him being born again into this character. And we're starting to see that more so with Matt and his case with Hector, and then him defending Hector and trying to do what he's supposed to do as a lawyer, but also utilizing his abilities and hearing if people are lying with their heartbeats and everything else within the court case. And I really did enjoy that. And I
really liked that they addressed the comment that I made last week. They addressed him exposing Hector's secret identity. And I loved Hector saying, you shouldn't have done that. You should have asked me first before.
That was my secret to tell.
Yeah, that was mine. That was mine. That wasn't yours. And even though he'd already told it to the judge and the DA, doing it in open court is like almost a public forum, that's even worse than a judge's chambers doing it. And it's like, so now you're done no matter what happened with this, particularly when he got acquitted, but you're done. Everybody knows who you are and what you are. And it's out there. So I really appreciated that they kind of acknowledged that, and that Matt even kind of admitted, like, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. And also like the scene with the cop in the bathroom where the cop is like, you shouldn't even have those glasses on in here. Like the cop is even acknowledging that, I know you might be blind, but you can see. Like the cop is like Matt's like, yeah, but you're not basically Matt's like, you can't prove that to anybody, so he still whips out his cane there and everything. Yeah. That was a metaphorical, when he whipped out his cane right there in front of the cop, that had to be a metaphorical. I'm showing you how big I am that I can walk right up to you and I'm just you're not going to do anything to me, because to
add to that, I think too, when he was giving that closing test or closing argument where he was talking about what a vigilante is. And I think he was talking as much about himself as he was about Hector.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he was. I kind of got the feels of that. And I think that's what's fueling Matt at that point to get back to the costume. Because as we see him at the end, after the victory of getting Hector freed from all 3 counts, which was amazing. Him fondling the broken horn from that night still.
Mm-hmm.
And it's him thinking, I have to go back to this, and I have to, based upon what he was talking about, vigilantes and how people are doing it for the just reasons, just to do what's right. And I think he hurt Hector in his own way, because
he did.
Oh, yeah, I love that. Like
and
Becky
he
said that.
It.
Yeah, those answers to all those questions, it was the right thing to do. It was the right thing to do. It was the right thing to do. Like just hammering home that what he was doing was the right thing to do, to where even the jury would hear it, so they would acknowledge that when he was on that subway platform, that obviously the cops must be lying, because if everything he does is the right thing to do, then whatever he was doing on that subway platform was the right thing to do.
Yeah, even
You know?
without the amulet there and giving him that power,
Mhm.
Matt even states that it's like it's going in with one arm.
Yeah.
And working that out. And he did the one thing that he thought was right and put himself at risk at that point because he was empowered at that point. And he was just being the good person that he is. And then that's when it went into that whole discussion and during the questioning saying this is not the first time you've done something like this. And then that's when he brings out the mask and everything and exposes Hector. But and you could see it on Matt's face when he agreed with Hector, saying that it wasn't his right to, out him. And he basically they stated in the courtroom saying that it's basically putting a target on his head again for the fact that if he does show up with that costume, people are going to be there to kill him or go after him.
Matt said that in the judge's chambers. He's like, the judge is like, you understand whatever happens. And he's like, yeah, I understand it's literally open season on my client. And I think Matt's going to carry that guilt with him.
Yes.
That because he made that choice, it was, I understand the choice. It worked, but I don't want to say because of him, but it is because of, he had a lot to do with the fact that Hector was exposed and now Hector is gone.
Yeah.
I hope they do show. So funny enough, real lawyers have actually chimed in on what he did, and he would have, as a lawyer, he would have gotten in so much trouble for what he did because he lied to the judge, saying that he would not expose him, and then all of a sudden he did. And they say that there are some like rules and stuff like that in real life if he would have done something like that. So I'm hoping in the next few episodes that they kind of probably show the consequences of that. Besides him knowing that he's gonna, feel guilty about, letting him go free and stuff like that and exposing his identity, but hopefully they'll put some real world things in there about what he did. I don't know if he could get disbarred, but I know that he could get I forgot what they call it, but I know he could get in a lot of trouble for what he just did.
Yeah, it could be there's definitely some ethical violations that could come in. The wife could definitely come in and go, well, because you did this, they knew he'd be leaving our apartment or whatever, and that's how they follow whatever. The wife, there's so many things the wife could bring up in this. But I think I hadn't thought about that. The kind of real courtroom ramifications of him going back on what he said with the judge, like specifically going in and saying, we're going to make this inadmissible. And then him being the one who brings it in. That's a huge ethical violation, for a lawyer. So I could see, like I said, I don't know disbarment. I'm trying to think what it is, but I'm sure there's some sort of legal ramification that he could face.
For sure. I'd like to talk about the scenes with Cherry getting Nikki to the courthouse. First, I want to let y'all know, so far there has been no Cherry sighting in my watching of the first season. And I loved that bait and switch. I didn't even, did y'all see that coming? I did not.
I did. I saw that coming because I knew it was like, he's got a van. They're following him. They're going to pull him over. And lo and behold, he's not there. And they're not going to have that kid in there.
No, I think the first time I watched it, I didn't have any clue. The second time, like I said, I was so tired. The first time I watched it, I didn't really remember. But the second time I watched it, I went, oh, yeah, I see where this is going. And then I thought to myself, but I've already seen this, so I can't claim that I figured it out, that this is what they were doing.
Yeah,
but,
I saw it the second time, too, after
obviously, when it's kind of like the whole, Knives Out the whodunits. Obviously you could pick out who the killer is when you've seen it before. But but yeah, no, I thought it was a good fake out. I didn't see it coming that first time around. I don't remember seeing it coming anyway.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up, and then you took the words right out of my mouth, Becky. That was the only thing else I had to add, because the only iconic part of the episode that still holds true that I still remember about it is like pretty much the beginning, most of the trial, and then that very much that
I was a little
ending.
shocked by the double murder at the beginning. I saw the one guy when he refused to give up his wallet. I was like, well, obviously they're going to shoot him. But then when they shot the second guy as well, and then later Vanessa tells him, hey, there was a double murder. I was like, oh, they actually killed both these guys.
Yeah.
And that's, showing us that there's this chaos happening in the it's not Fisk's organization anymore, but it's in the crime, or like Becky said, Becky, he's trying to get this chaos so that when he cleans it up. But I think ultimately what's going to happen is he's going to clean up one side of it, and then he's going to come back in, with his own kind of setup, whether it's with the cops or however it is. But he's going to come back in with his own kind of setup, or Vanessa's going to set up her own kind of crime syndicate kind of thing. I think. But yeah, that was a shock to me when both those guys were killed at the beginning.
Yeah, and the one thing to appreciate about this, and with that scene, even though it is kind of violent and horrific, I think it was the first time we actually got some real blood on the show so far.
Oh no, Matt slammed that guy's head against the fridge.
That's true.
In the second episode.
Yeah.
There was plenty of blood. And
we're getting the same violence that we got from Netflix when it was out.
This episode did not have a lot of that in it. That did not have that kind of level.
This is not your regular Disney Marvel style movie or show. We kind of got some of that during the Hawkeye, definitely through Echo, and a little bit from Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But this.
Yeah, but there's still kind of what I would call the MCU Disney type of thing. I mean, when you look at the Netflix, especially season 1,
yes,
there is a grittiness to it that I don't see in this. I mean, there's still some really cool fight scenes, but it's just something that Netflix kind of just goes, screw it, just go as far as you can. Well, Disney probably says, well, let's scale it back just a little bit, so you could kind of see that.
Yeah, it is Disney-fied in a sense for being more mature, but yeah. We're not going to really see any of that stuff, really, unless it's a rated R film, like as we covered Wolverine and what was it? Deadpool Wolverine. Yeah. But
can we talk about the guy going to meet with the people who were involved with both sides, who were affected by the truck jacking, and
yes.
Was it Victor or Luca yelling, you tell the mayor I want to talk to him myself? And the guy's like, I don't work for Fisk, I work for the man.
Yeah, he goes, I don't work for the mayor, I work for the man.
That did that. So I really thought that was a very intriguing way to phrase that. And also, is that the same guy that went to get the book signed by Fisk and Vanessa's therapist and Matt's girlfriend?
Yeah, I was confused by that. This guy, they keep interchanging some of these assistants and second and lieutenants and stuff to where I'm not sure who's doing what in the organization. But you're right, Becky. We don't really know. I mean, I think you're right. I think he was talking about Vanessa, but at the same time, you're like, is he, or is there somebody else who's pulling the strings here?
Well, she said she did it.
Oh, okay.
And before the therapist got there, she's like, there was a problem. I fixed it.
Oh, okay. You're right. She did say that. Okay. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting struggle between the two of them at this.
I love it. Oh, I love it so much.
And I have to watch this episode again. I have one last thing. I don't know about anybody else. And I put it in the notes because I wanted to make sure I remembered to mention it because I always mention it when somebody says the title of the episode.
Yeah,
And of
you
course, Vanessa in her little monologue about God talks about she uses the title of the episode. And she says the hollow of his hand. So we have our mic drop moment for the episode. I'm gonna track that because I like that in shows where they do that because I want to see because there's only a handful of shows really where they find some way to work the title of the episode into almost every episode. The Walking Dead is one that does it a lot, and I want to see if this show continues to do that or not.
Yeah, Shrinking does it too on Apple TV Plus.
Mhm.
If you watch that show and a few others.
I have one more point about BB. The BB. I would Rob. I call BB's little moments that happen in the show. I call them BB breaks. I liked the interview with the gentleman talking about how he didn't think Hector, because he was Puerto Rican, would not get a fair trial. I think that I like it when shows bring current real world situations, and there's a lot of people because of their ethnicity or whatever don't get fair trials, and I just
The
I wanted
BB
to
the
bring
BB
up, I like
breaks
that.
the BB breaks are great. I'm glad we kept those in. I'm glad they brought her back for that little interview moment with Fisk at the end, where we get to see him, calling out that the jury made the wrong decision, and then saying, these vigilantes need to be dealt with, and I'm going to deal with them. And then the very next scene we cut to is the White Tiger being dealt with.
That was well edited. That was well done.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. To speak about the editing, I talked about the scars on Fisk's knuckles, but that editing at the very beginning of the episode, when it pans down to Fisk's knuckles, and then it cuts to Matt's knuckles as he's washing his hands in the bathroom, was a great editing moment where they brought those two scenes kind of together and melded them. I thought I didn't catch it till the second time. I went, oh, they went from one set of hands with scars on the knuckles to another set of hands with scars on the knuckles, and panned up to show us Matt's face. So I thought that's I think the duality between Fisk and Matt we're going to see even more so continued throughout this season.
Well, I think that's because once again, I think what's going on is that Matt is trying very hard not to be Daredevil, and
Yes,
Fisk is trying very hard not to be Fisk.
Ooh, I like that.
not to be
and
Kingpin, right?
yeah,
right.
so
Yeah.
he's real, so but it just seems like they always get drawn.
Inevitably, yeah.
They get drawn into who they are. So I thought it was a great scene because it's something that they just can't seem to shake off.
yes.
And I think throughout the entire series, what's going to happen is that's exactly what's going to happen is that Fisk is always going to be the Kingpin. Matt is always going to be Daredevil. And it's just something that they cannot escape.
Yeah, that's the prediction that I'll make, and this is the only disagreement I'll have with where I could see Fisk do something to Vanessa is if he gets to the point at the end of the season where he says, "You drove me to this. You drove me to become what I had to become to get rid of you," and then I could see him doing something to Vanessa in that regards of, you made me into this. You made me back into
It could
this
be.
kind of thing.
I mean,
So,
honestly, I wish we get to see more of Bullseye.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I want to see.
Happened to him? He's in prison right now.
Yeah, I want to
Yeah.
see more of that. We know that, of course, Frank Castle is going to come into the picture at some point. But yeah, definitely, I would like to see more development of that character.
Yeah.
I don't think we will, but I hope I'm with you. Mark had the same thought last time we recorded, and I kind of poo-pooed it. And because I'm like, oh no, I think his story is just done, but we'll see.
You got to remember, Bullseye's a psychopath. And so knowing that character, who knows? Maybe he goes after Vanessa just to hurt Kingpin. And even though, Fisk won't himself do it, somebody else doing it might be a conflict for him, like inside of him. It's like, well, I probably should have done that, but I don't want to do that because I love her. But I'm glad somebody else did it. But the fact that somebody else did it pisses me off. you know, that kind of stuff. I think that would be very interesting to see. Unless Frank Castle is the one that, you know, takes her out. And that will be even more interesting too.
Yeah.
I will riot. Save Vanessa.
You heard it here first.
Well, that's all I had for about the episode. What about you guys? Any
All I
notes?
got.
I think I'm tapped out.
Yeah, that's all I got.
I just have one quote because Becky kind of brought up the one that was regarding Fisk. That would be Matt, and this is to Powell while they're in the court during questioning, saying regarding Powell's black eye, and he goes, "There's a saying in boxing: the best cure for a black eye is fast hands." And that was basically a callback to Matt and his father, because Matt was always with his father, who was a professional boxer, and that's how he died. He died in the ring. So it's something that still holds true. I love the fact that every time there's a portrayal of Daredevil, it always refers to Matt's dad as being a professional boxer. He died in that ring. I was watching, of all things, I got a copy. It was like a 1080p version of the trial of the Incredible Hulk.
Oh God, please
yeah.
don't.
Rob's like, "Oh God, that's terrible," and you could see everything with clarity, especially like the booties that Frigg know how to wear on his feet during certain scenes too, and how bad the wig was. But you see, it's like even in it, how David Banner says to him and talks to him regarding his father and the picture and the billboard or the poster for the boxing event that his father died at. And it was something goes, "I've never saw a blind person's house before." And then it's like, you see only these two things. It's like, no, but yet there's statues all about. Obviously you could feel the statues, but you can't really see them. But they use it as a consistent main point for Matt throughout the any iteration of him, whether it be Affleck's version in the movie or this series, the Netflix series, or even within when they had the, as I like to say, the cartoony version of it on the Incredible Hulk series that we got, especially when we had Thor at the same time. Not to reflect on that stuff, but I thought it was pretty cool that they keep bringing it back, because that's part of Matt's history and that makes Matt who he is. I'm wondering if they'll dive back into that again, or even have the priest that Matt knows in the church. But yeah, that's all I have as far as quotes. Anybody else?
That was my quote. So all good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great minds.
I have a little bit of comic news. As we all know, that Sadie Sink has already been cast for Spider-Man 4, but there's no knowledge of who she would be playing. We all know Sadie from the TV show on Netflix, Stranger Things, and she's redheaded as a kid. You know,
Well, they think that
girl.
she either might be one or two people, either Mary Jane, or she's going to be
Firestar.
Jean Grey.
There's talks about Firestar. My first thought was they could actually take that, and since Sony is running this as far as it being a Sony property and in accordance with Marvel, they could easily bring in Firestar as well, because that was a
Yeah, but Firestar is a mutant, so that automatically is a Fox. You're talking about Fox or Sony?
it's a Fox thing. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Because well, it's a Marvel thing because they own Fox. Yeah, it's a possibility, but who knows? You got three different ideas. I'm leaning more towards either Firestar or Mary Jane, but if they go the course of Mary Jane, they've already done this so many times. They could just eliminate it because they already have an MJ in that world.
They do.
They already have, even though it's Michelle Jones, but why bring in an actual redhead to play Mary Jane?
Yeah, but wait a minute. We're talking about Spider-Man 4.
Yes.
So I mean,
With
that's
Tom
still
Holland.
you're right. That's still going to be a MCU That's still going to be MCU controlled, even though
Controlled or
right.
related were in collaboration. Yeah. So it's a possibility. We'll see. I'm curious because they still have to give us more mutants. And I'm curious to what we get.
I hope it's not Firestar because that means that they're going to bring like Spider-Man and his amazing friends, and that just not.
Which is so funny too, because Firestar was actually made for that show. And then they incorporated her into the comics later on, which is so funny. But I'm looking forward to whatever they have. It's interesting to find out that they got
Right.
Sadie Spank, but it doesn't surprise me nonetheless for the fact that they have to recast and give these people new characters or new faces in these characters. So if she does play Jean Grey, that more power to them. It's not like we got somebody from Game of Thrones in there again playing it.
Let me tell you, I don't think what's the name of the actress?
From Game
Who
of
play-
Thrones?
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot her name.
Shoot. I don't think she was a bad Jean Grey. The problem was
no.
that the story was bad. And
The writing
way
was bad, and
was
it was
horrible.
written. Well, we all know it was written by the same guy who did the last time they did a Dark Phoenix movie for Fox.
So yeah, no, I always say in the right hands, there's a lot of great actors that can do a good job, but
Yeah,
there's great actors also in the wrong hands that are not good for that. I mean, I always said, George Clooney could have been a great Batman
yeah.
under the right director. But unfortunately, he was under, Joel Schumacher, so he looked like a fool.
Oh, he sure did.
Yeah, so same thing with, I think, oh man, I keep forgetting her name.
Sophie Turner.
Sophie Turner.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
Sophie Turner, I think, would have done a great job as Jean Grey. It's just I don't think that she was utilized the right way.
And it was truer to the look of Jean Grey too, in my opinion, with Sophie Turner in comparison to Famke Janssen, who was in the original Fox series.
I thought Famke Janssen was great.
I thought she was great as an actress, but the look, she was not a natural redhead. That's the one.
Oh,
thing.
who cares? I mean,
Marilyn Monroe wasn't a natural blonde either, Mark.
Matt Murdock is supposed to be a natural redhead, and he has not had any red hair throughout this entire
That
series.
is true. That is true.
So
You're correct. Yeah, they could make a few changes here and there. I got it. All right. With that being said, that's a little bit of news out there just to discuss and have fun with. But well,
have you seen okay, so talking about comic news, have you seen the trailer of the Thunderbolts, which emulates an A24 film trailer?
Yes, I did.
Freaking fantastic. I thought
was
that was
interesting.
just absolutely amazing.
I'm looking forward to that, honestly.
Oh, much more than Captain America. Brave New World.
Oh, Brave New World. It to me, we said it before when we covered it. It was entertaining, but whether it be a great Marvel film, no. Hence why it's coming out at the end of the month on digital download to everybody. So it's coming out March 30th. That's how fast it's coming.
That could have been a Disney show. I'll be very honest with you.
It could have been, honestly. Yeah, you're right.
That should have just been a Disney show and just like leave it to that.
But the one thing that it did give us was Red Hulk.
Yeah, it did that. All right,
it did that. Not Red Ross, Red Hulk, and all you fans out there, Red Ross. Anyhow, yeah. So yeah. I'm looking forward to the Thunderbolts too, as well. And then I just wanted to drop that little tidbit of knowledge of like when you could actually watch Captain America: Brave New World. You'd have to purchase it in digital download. Everybody, it's not going to be available for Disney Plus probably for another month and a half after that.
Yeah,
so, just to let you know. Anywho,
I'd be curious to see who's going to pay $24 for a digital download.
I'm glad I only paid like what? It was like $14 for a matinee at the Lowe's AMC in Danbury.
Hey,
Yeah.
listen, I still don't know what, 8 minutes of that movie in the beginning looked like. So, and I didn't go back to the theater to watch it.
But yeah, we have a lot more to look forward to. Right now, we're at the end, towards the end of the podcast. So obviously, we're going to go into podcast recommendations for everybody. So, does anybody have anything to offer as podcast recommendation?
I would like to recommend the Yellow Jackets coverage podcast Ticket is doing with Yellow Jackets WTF. That show, it's off the rails. In every episode, I by the end of it, I just sit there and look at my TV like, what's going on? But they do great coverage. Penny and Daphne and Wendy talking about the show and kind of help break it down and help some of it make sense. So check them out on podcastica.com. And again, it's Yellow Jackets WTF.
Yep. Steve?
The only thing I'll put a plug in for, and anything on Podcastica is great, but if you love the show Severance, Rob has a podcast, has a We Know Scripted TV, and they cover Severance on there, and they actually have two neurologist brain doctors who actually are part of the podcast, and so they can actually talk about what the parts of the brain are, and they talk about from the Severance show what is kind of true and what is not true, and what is kind of true to life and what might be theoretical and stuff. So yeah, the RHAP We Know Scripted TV, the Severance podcast there is a great
cool.
one.
Yeah, just keep in mind, not this Rob.
Not that Rob. Yeah, this
Wait,
Rob.
when
This
did you
is Rob
start doing
Mariano.
that?
Yeah. But it's not. It's Rob. It's not Rob. It's not Rob who does that podcast. I can't remember, the names are escaping me right now. But like I said, they're it's one of the regular podcast hosts, and then he has two neurobiologists or neurologists who are actually brain doctors who are on the podcast with him. So
Awesome.
That's cool. I got nothing. So in case you were wondering about me, no, I have nothing. So
The only thing I have to suggest would be all of you all know that we're friends with Derek and John from TV Podcast Industries. They are currently covering the same thing as us, so give them a listen to just the same. A little shout out there. They're covering Daredevil Born Again as well, and they're doing a great job of it, and just want to lend them some support and suggestions for other listeners to listen to. But for this particular episode, we did set up a feedback post. We didn't get any feedback, which I understand. Things get in the way, or you have a lot to do, or maybe you just I just want to hear what they have to say. Because usually that's what I wind up doing for a lot of podcasts in the very beginning. I was like, I never sent any feedback. But for you to send in some sort of feedback, all you have to do is go to our Facebook group, which would be facebook.com/panelstopixels. What's on Facebook is on Instagram. So whatever I post there is going to be on Instagram. And I usually put an image, the logo inside the image, obviously, of the episode, what we're covering, and just let you know, hey, just leave your comments below the image itself. So we'll read them just the same. You could also email us, which you could just email us at panelstopixels1@gmail.com. So panels is spelled out, panels 2 pixels and the number 1@gmail.com. You can write it out. We'll read that particular email. Or if you want to record yourself and send that as an attachment, we could actually play it when we actually do record, or even on the following episode. As always, right now I still actually am taking a few courses in WordPress. So panels to pixels not panels to pixels podcast.com. I kind of eliminated that. I'm trying to consolidate everything to the Pirate Core Entertainment.com site. So that way I could get everybody set up as when it comes on what's on tonight, put on Panels to Pixels on there, as well as Adrenaline Cinema Podcast and anybody else who comes on. So that's still under construction, but I'm working on that. I'm taking a few courses here and there, trying to get that back up to snuff. We can be found on YouTube as always, just like with like I said, with Facebook and Instagram. When the episodes show up on YouTube, you can leave your comments below. We'll read them next time. we got notified, and Becky could tell you more so than anything that a lot of people do leave messages in YouTube. So she gets them and gets to read them. And then obviously, if you're there, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and get notified and ring that bell when new episodes approach. We could be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever podcast player of choice. There's always a 5-star review that's on there. Please give one if you can. Please give some notes as well. And right now we're at the point where can listeners hear you?
Well, this is Steve, and I can be heard on right here on Panels to Pixels podcast and other various podcasts that our friends do that I send voicemails to. I will also be on an upcoming Wilhelm podcast covering Gene Hackman movies. So that should be, look forward to that in the coming weeks. I'm going to be recording it probably next week, and then hopefully it'll be out sometime after that.
I can be heard here on Panels to Pixels, Adrenaline Cinema, and my very own podcast, What's On Tonight, where we are currently covering the amazing medical drama, The Pit. You can find us on the Pirate Core Entertainment YouTube page, and then check us out. We also have a Facebook and Instagram page, and a lot of things are in the works with that podcast. It's growing, and I'm very excited. So please check us out.
And I could be heard screaming outside my window all the time.
Rob could be found here on occasion. Same thing with the Adrenaline Cinema podcast, as always.
Right.
All right. And same with me. You could hear me here, as always, on Panels to Pixels podcast, Adrenaline Cinema podcast, or the Pirate Core Entertainment music podcast. We are gearing up to put out Appetite for Destruction. So I got in touch with Rima today and look for that particular episode as we cover that album at the end of the month. Obviously, like I told you, listeners, once a month, one album or artist, and then we do that. Unless somebody else wants to put one out. But they'll let me know when that time comes. But that was our show. Next week, we'll be covering Daredevil Born Again, Episode 4. I just want to thank everyone for listening. I'm Mark.
And I'm Steve.
And I'm Becky.
And I'm Rob.
Same podcast, different panel, different pixel. This was Panels to Pixels podcast. And we'll see you on the next panel. We'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Later.
Good night.
Good night.